What's up, guys? Post-production Eventon here. I forgot to mention at the beginning and the end of this video that I will be giving away 2 Gila skins. I realize this video is very, very long and it's probably more of a podcasty type of thing where you guys can leave it running in the background. Though there are a couple moments where it's probably beneficial for you guys to look at the screen because I do make some certain comparisons between stuff. But for the most part, I really appreciate you guys watching this content and you guys commenting. You guys are amazing. So if you want to enter into the Gila skin giveaway, down in the comments below, just tell me what you guys think about some of the ideas or concepts that I've kind of brought up, or maybe some things that CCP might have overlooked, or what you guys think about the update overall in general. So that's pretty much it. Hope you guys enjoy the rest of the video. What's up, guys? It's Eventon here. Got a little bit of probably one of my favorite songs in EVE Online called Glowing Red Dust. I used to listen to this all the time when I used to go mining, and it is extremely nostalgic for me back in the day when I was trying to question what's the difference between Veldspar, Dense Veldspar, all that stuff, asking those questions and rookie chat and all that stuff. So I'm going to try and go over this as quickly as I can. I'm not going to go over every single tidbit of information. I'm going to try my best to try and link as much information as I can below in the description, because all this stuff that is being shown, it is strictly being play tested right now. This isn't the final form or anything like that. CCP is actually encouraging people to go on the test server, try out these mechanics, fly these ships, find any glitches, errors, or anything that is wrong with them that you feel like that needs to get changed, and go through the proper channels to give that feedback, which I'm going to try again as I can down in the description below. I believe there's a forum post or something like that where you can kind of give your feedback or kind of any bugs that may exist in here. So looking at the first thing, I'm not going to cover the industrial core too much because, well, one reason is I've never flown a Rorqual. I love the idea of an industrial core and the fact that the Orca is getting one. This is actually pretty in line with what I mentioned before in my previous videos. If you guys have not seen that, I made a video probably 9 or 10 months ago talking about the changes or things that they could add to the Orca as well as the Rorqual a long time ago, and some of these changes were implemented, and even some more recent videos of me overhauling the barge exhumer as well as the expedition frigate. So if you guys have not checked those out, I highly suggest you guys do. Maybe I'll link those down below in the description as well if you guys haven't checked them out, and just see how many things I got right that I think CCP could or should have done, and then some of the things I might have gotten incorrectly or kind of missed the ball on as well. So yeah, so pretty much all the typical industrial core stuff the Orca is getting as well, except for something like the capital remote booster and all that stuff, but everything else for the most part seems to be in line. One thing that is pretty interesting, I would say, is I think this is, and again, I think all this information is maybe not correct, so some of it needs to get updated, or maybe there's some miswording. As you can see here for the Rorqual, like the level 1 industrial core, the new one gives a mining drone bonus of 100, so it's a 100% bonus, but the level 2 one gives a 500% bonus, so I don't think that's exactly correct. It seems like the old core was at 400, but this is 500, so are you mining more? I'm not entirely sure on that. The Orca does have its increases as well, but it sounds like for the most part, if the Orca, because as of right now, the Orca got all of its mining bonuses, its drone mining bonuses, completely gouged from its roll bonuses as well as its per level command. It's command industrial bonuses. So the only bonuses you're going to get is if you bring on, or if you take on this new industrial compact core, you put it on, you pretty much do the equivalent of bastioning up. You're stuck in place for 5 minutes minimum before you can kind of undo it and move again. And yeah, that's the only way you can kind of get these drone bonuses, which is up to 100%, as you can see here. So moving on, the ones I did kind of want to bring to your guys' attention, and I actually try to do my best trying to zoom in the Excel spreadsheet, because I found out I don't have Microsoft Excel, which is why I was getting those errors in my last video for the most part. So I actually had to have a court mate help me out and give it to me on Google Sheets. But as you can see here, I'm going to start with the Venture. I'll probably start with just the expedition frigates first. But with the Venture, unfortunately, okay, so they got a buff to, I mean, they have an ore hold now as well as a gas hold. They don't have an ice hold because they can't do ice. But unfortunately, they got their roll bonus for gas harvesting yield completely removed. So that 100% bonus they were getting is now removed. So this is going to hurt a lot of the new players that do want to go out into wormhole space solo and do some wormhole gas huffing. Funny enough, I did a video about this probably 8 or 9 months ago. Did a tutorial basically from beginning to end, how you should fit your ship, all that stuff, and going out into wormhole space. And CCP actually approached me saying hey, can we promote this on our, I believe it was Twitter, which I honestly don't really have a Twitter, but I was like, sure, why not? And so they put it up there. I think it got a handful of likes and all that stuff. But it seems like obviously that was a gameplay they wanted to encourage back then, but now maybe less so. So you can still gas huff, but you're not getting the same bonuses as you were before. One thing I noticed about the roll bonuses is I'm not sure if these new roll bonuses are being completely replaced, because as of right now, it says the Venture has no roll bonuses. So does that mean it's losing its +2 warp core stabilization and now you can't light industrial cytos? I'm not exactly sure, so I'm not going to nitpick on that too much, but I did notice that information is missing. You'll notice too that there's some other spots where it seems a bit weird. Like as you can see here for the Coveter, it has a mining frigate skill per level, so I don't think that's right. So I just think some information is either misplaced or just misworded for the most part. So unfortunately, the Venture is losing out on its gas huffing bonuses. The Prospect and the Endurance, in my video, I said that both of these ships need an extra slot. And I said that the Prospect needs an extra slot in the high because for some reason it has, of the 3 slots, it has 2 turret slots for mining or gas huffing and then 1 utility slot, which is a bit weird because if you are going to go out and do solo gas huffing or whatever it is, you want 2 utility slots, 1 for a scanner as well as 1 for a covert ops cloak, because that's what a Prospect can do. Now, especially since they gave both the expedition frigates a core probe bonus, like probe strength bonus, it only makes sense that they should have a core probe launcher as well as a covert ops cloak, because the Prospect can fit one. Strangely enough, the Prospect also got the penalty to ship velocity when using cloaking devices. So again, I'm not sure if they just got this mixed up, because this is a bonus that Endurance used to have. So Endurance used to not be able to use a covert ops cloak. They can now. But the Prospect now has it, so now you can use a covert ops cloak as well as T1 and like normal T2 cloaks, but move just as fast. I'm not exactly sure, so that's kind of interesting, the fact that you kind of switch between the two if you really wanted to, but I'm not exactly sure with that. Prospect is getting an extra mid slot. I'd much rather see that extra slot go to the high. Let them have 2 turrets as well as a probe scanner and a covert ops cloak or whatever cloak they want to use. Getting an extra mid, I just don't know what the Prospect is going to be using with an extra mid. Plus their whole deal is signature tanking, so giving them an extra mid, there's nothing really there in the mid slot that can actually help them out sig tank any faster. Unlike if you give them an extra low, they can fit another nanofiber to increase their speed, something like that. So in this case, that is simply not the case. One thing they did do is they nerfed their shield HP from 800 down to 600. So they nerfed the shield HP of the Prospect by 25%, but they did give it a 5% buff across the board in armor and shields, 5% to all resist types. So I don't think that's going to offset the fact that it is going to be very, very squishy now compared to what it was before. It did give it an increase in max velocity. Its agility was, I believe if it gives a subtraction, it is a buff. So instead of having a 3-second align time, now it is 2.3, which makes it that much easier to get your ship down to sub 3 second. So it seems like they're trying to make the Prospect much more nimble, much more squishy, but as well as harder to catch because it does have a faster align time as well as a warp speed in conjunction with that. Bigger ore hold. A lot of these ships are also getting gas and ore holds as well. So this actually means you can fit 12,500 meters cubed of ore, as well as 10,000 ore, as well as 10,000 ice, all on top of it, as far as my understanding goes. We already covered kind of like the roll bonuses. The mining frigate skill, it's only getting a 25% bonus per level, which is more than what it was getting prior, which is 5%, but they got rid of that 100% roll bonus for the Prospect. So I'm not sure if this is something CCP is trying to do to get rid of that like 100% roll bonus. I'm not exactly sure because it equals the same, right? Because basically all they did was instead of 100% here, they just added that 20% per 5 level here and the 5% bonus. So in order to mine as much as you, or gas huff as much as you could before, you had to get it to like max level for the most part. But they also removed its gas huffing bonus as well. So as we look down here, actually I take that back. The gas huffing bonus, sorry if it's a little bit all over the place. You do get a mining laser cycle time bonus, ice harvesting cycle time, gas cloud harvesting cycle time, as well as a sig radius bonus. So I think all in all, I think the Prospect actually got a buff to, it seems like CCP wants to position the Prospect as the do-it-all ship, so it can mine lasers, or it can mine ore, as well as ice and gas, do it all pretty efficiently, and I think it's going to be at a slightly higher rate than it was before, even though it did lose that 100% bonus. That 100% bonus just got moved to here for at least lasers, but it will get nerfed in its gas cloud harvesting, which I think is in line with the Venture. So it seems like CCP is trying to really nerf the expedition frigates when it comes to gas cloud mining and kind of give that to the barges as well as the Exhumers, because they are a bit more vulnerable than some of these ships. Like the Prospect and the Endurance are very slippery ships. I think that's pretty much it for the Prospect for now. Other than that, I don't really think they added much. Like less max lock targets, like who cares about that? Now this next one is actually a really, really big deal, the Endurance. I said before in my last video when I was covering barges and Exhumers, I thought it'd be really cool to have skiffs and procures get some more bonuses towards kind of like being like the watchdogs or like the guardsmen of like the other mining ships like in your fleet. So if you did get jumped, they can actually fight back, do a bit of damage, maybe hold some targets in place, which is kind of the case here with the Endurance. That's almost the exact same thing they did with the Procure, the Skiff, and the Endurance. So they pretty much completely removed any kind of bonus it was getting from the expedition skill. So it's actually, you can see here that the Prospect is getting mining bonuses. The Endurance is just getting like just raw resistances as well as drone damage. They do get a small bonus to mining lasers. They do get a bonus to mining drone cycle time and penalty to ice harvesting drone cycle time. So I think this is just a miswording thing, because a 200% penalty in mining drones, does that mean like you just don't use mining drones? Like why would you ever use mining drones? I think they meant to put reduction. So a 200% reduction in mining drone cycle time, meaning that it will mine faster. But then again, the Endurance only has a 25. They increased the drone bandwidth from 15 to 25. But even then, if you use ice mining drones, all ice mining drones are 50 megabits. Unless you're using the work call with like the excavator ice drones, that's a bit different. But I think they made a mistake here. I think they meant to increase the drone bandwidth as well as the drone capacity up to 50, because that's also in line with the fact that it seems a bit weird that it's also getting a medium drone damage boost, but it can't even hold a full fleet of medium drones. So I thought that was a bit weird. So like, what would you run? Like 1 medium and 3 lights, or like two mediums and a light? Like that just seems a bit weird. And in which case you're always better off with just running 5 lights. One thing I did want to cover. So it seems like the Endurance is going to be like the ship that is either around or you can use it offensively. I'm actually going to show you guys something here that's really, really interesting. Sorry if it's going to look a bit scuffed as we're looking at this. I actually need to move this over one more with the Endurance. I was actually talking about this with my court mates. I'm actually going to scroll up here because this is actually very, very interesting. If we actually compare these side by side. Let me move this over a bit more. Okay, cool. So in my honest opinion, I think the Endurance, if they leave the buffs or the ship as is, it's going to be actually better than the Astero in pretty much almost every single way. So if we look at the slots here, if we look at the high slots, the Endurance has 3 and the Astero has 2. The Endurance has 4 mids as well as 4 lows. It does have like half the capacitor, maybe a little bit more than half that, like less than half the capacitor of like the Astero. But the thing that I'm looking at here is that it has a bigger CPU, has a higher base shield HP compared to the Astero, because you can see the Astero only has 675. It also has a higher armor base HP of 1200 compared to 750. It has a higher base structure HP of 750 versus 1200. It also has better shield resist, because obviously it's a, an armor ship versus a shield ship. It has higher EM resist in the armor, but everything else is a bit lower for like between thermal, kinetic, as well as explosive. But again, if we scroll down here to the bonuses, the Expedition Frigate is getting a 4% bonus to shields and armor, while the Astero is over here stuck with just armor. So per level frigate for like Marian frigates, you get plus 4% to armor, while over here the Endurance is getting to shield and armor. And not only that, if you look over here at the Astero, it gets a 20% bonus to drone hit points, not to damage, to hit points, while over here the Endurance is getting a bonus to drone damage, both small and mediums. So the fact that also the Endurance could potentially even just field medium drones, like a full fleet of them over the Astero, I think in general is going to make the Endurance a ship that is not only better at hunting, but also could possibly hunt bigger game than the Astero itself, just because the base stats are a bit higher. The only thing that could maybe be a bit iffy is that it doesn't seem that the Endurance gets a reduction for like a CPU when it comes, like much like the Astero. You can see the Astero here, 100% reduction to cloaking devices. The Endurance doesn't get that, but also the Astero has an extra rig slot versus the Endurance. But I think just like raw like just like the raw stats that the Endurance has over the Astero, I think might actually make it better for hunting over the Astero. And not only that, it gets a 25% bonus to core probe strength, while obviously the Astero gets it a bit higher. It's at like 37.5%. So, I mean, unless you're hacking or doing some very serious scanning, like I think overall the Astero might actually be a bit weaker comparatively to the Endurance. So that's just something I noticed. In my personal opinion, I would rather have a ship that I could choose to basically shield or armor tank because the resistances are so high, as well as just doing more raw damage with the drones and just more raw stats. So I would say the only thing that it might be worse at is like the on-grid speed is a little bit slower than the Astero. The align time is almost identical. I'm trying to see what other changes there were. I think that's pretty much it. So I think that's the main thing I kind of wanted to mention, is that I noticed that the Endurance was going to be potentially like the next best hunter next to the Astero. It could overtake it, but it maybe in some very, very niche uses, the Endurance might actually, so the Astero could be better than the Endurance. But I think overall, with just the way the stats are being laid out as is, I think the Endurance is actually going to be better than the Astero. All right, I am back. I needed to take a bit of a break post-editing. I also noticed that it probably looks a little bit better if I zoomed out the graph like it is before. I think the last one was a bit too zoomed in, so you guys couldn't really see anything. But anyway, we'll go and jump into the mining barges. So there is some information to cover here. I would say overall, I'm pretty happy with some of the changes. I do have mixed feelings about it. But before we jump into kind of like just like the raw stats and stuff, I think it's just always better to look at the roll bonuses and like the per level bonuses as well. So overall, this is pretty interesting. So the barges, the Covetor and the Retriever, just got a flat boost to their mining yield. Much, much higher. Because before, the mining barge like skill like per bonus or like per level would give you just 2% cycle time for ice and mining. This gives you now a 5% bonus to miner yield. So it's not cycling faster, it's still taking longer to cycle, but now you're actually able to get more per cycle. Same thing, ice harvester duration is getting sped up by an additional 2%. So like now you're able to harvest ice, basically the bonus is twice as much as it was prior. Same thing with the Covetor. The Covetor is also getting a gas harvesting duration. So the interesting note, that's something I didn't notice prior, was like, actually the Retriever and the Procure aren't getting a gas bonus. So the Covetor seems to be the gas mining ship, pretty similar to the Procure. It seems like CCP's trying to pigeonhole the Prospect and the Covetor, as well as I would assume the Hulk eventually, as the mining ships, the ones that want to do all the extracting and all that stuff. The Retriever can do it. It's still the solo boat. You still get some bonuses, but you do get that cargo hold capacity. The Procure, on the other hand, like the Endurance, gets no bonuses to some. Actually, they do get some minor bonuses. Strip miner yield, as well as ice harvesting duration. But as you can see here, up at the roll bonuses, they get no bonus, unlike the other two as well. So their mining capability is going to be very, very significantly gimped versus the other two. Looking up here, the Covetor, so the roll bonus, actually, they got buffed from 25% up to 30% now, strip miner duration. So not only are they getting more per level, they're also just got more from the roll bonus. And the Retriever prior, which actually had no roll bonus, this is actually something I said in my last video, that it was a bit weird that Retriever was like the only barge that didn't get a mining bonus or just any bonus at all, like roll bonus at all whatsoever. Now they're getting an additional 12.5% just duration subtracted off. So now you're harvesting that much faster. So the Retriever is actually pretty competitive when it comes to just mining or just yield wise, but the Covetor is still going to be the king when it comes to raw yield, I think, as it should be. Scrolling up here, and again, it does seem like the Procure and the Endurance, they're just very much, like I said before, on that kind of that watchdog kind of role where their yield is suffers, but they can definitely deal some damage if the fleet does get jumped, and you can actually deal some damage back as well. So one thing with the Procure, actually, is this a buff or a nerf? Because the Procure used to have, or as it is currently, is a 50% bonus to drone damage as well as HP, but it lost the HP bonus, but gained 75% damage. I would say overall, it's probably a buff, unless you're doing some meme solo PvP bait fit, that autopilot through low sec to try and get someone to attack you, and they just don't realize it's a bait. Maybe that in that case where they actually try to defang your drones and they know it's a long-term fight, it's probably a nerf. But I think overall, typically people are going to be targeting the Procure and just trying to kill it as fast as possible, and the drones can actually help deal some damage in the meantime in that case, because HP doesn't really matter. All right, heading back up here, these are some of the things I'm not entirely in favor of. I will admit, the Procure was, or still is, extremely tanky for it's very cost effective when it comes to just its raw EHP for its value for the most part. But the Coveter gets an extra mid slot as well as the Retriever, which is awesome. That's something I mentioned before that it didn't feel, to me personally, I felt like they shouldn't have really messed with the slots and the barges, because that's what makes them feel unique, is that like the different slot layups, setups. But now they're trying to make it all universal. So all the barges feel the same. They'll have 2 highs, 2 mids, 3 lows. That's how they should all be. Not a huge fan of that. I do admit that having a measly 1 mid slot for the Retriever and Coveter and having like very little to no power grid or CPU to make use of it, I do agree that they should give it an extra mid. I said too that they needed to give it an extra power grid as well as CPU to like make up for that fat, so you can actually fit like a micro warp drive on it, or at least like a multi-spec and not feel bad about it. They did say that they buffed like the Coveter and Retriever's HP. I mean, hardly at all. I mean, they're giving the Coveter armor HP, not shield HP, so it's not even for its like highest resist layout, and it's gaining an extra 100 structure HP. So I think, in my personal opinion, in a PvP sense, this is going to be menial. This is going to be nothing when it comes to extra HP. So the Coveter, I mean, that's an extra, like Corvette worth of damage that they're basically saving up for. They are nerfing the max targets. They are nerfing its align time on the Coveter. They are increasing the ore hold by a tiny bit, but they're giving it an equal gas and ice hold. Same thing across the board. Again, all these are all individual holds as far as I know, so you can actually hold 7,500 or 7,000 gas, 7,000 ice, as far as I know. Retriever's kind of getting the same treatment, an extra mid, 3 lows. They are getting additional power grid as well as CPU. See, this one's actually getting an increase of shield HP. So this one's actually increases shield HP by almost 10%. It looks like 8% or so. It's also getting armor HP as well as structure HP. So across the board, the Retriever is actually getting a pretty significant buff to their HP overall. The max velocity is actually going up, so these ships are actually moving a bit faster, and I will admit their on-grid speed was pretty abysmal for what they do. Like, even if you put a micro warp drive on them, like a 5MN, it was so slow. This is also something I noticed that I mentioned in my last video a while back, that the mass was super weird, how the Retriever and Coveter were sometimes like more than double the size of the Procure. So now it seems like they kind of reverse those roles. Now the Procure is actually much bigger than the other two, at least mass wise. Another thing I noticed is both the Procure and the Retriever are both getting their drone bandwidth as well as their drone capacity increase. So all of the barges now can have 50 megabits worth of drones out at any given time. So that's basically 1 ice drone, 5 mediums, however you want to set that up. And so that's something I kind of noticed. At least I would have preferred the Retriever get a bigger drone bay and be able to have some sort of bonus to ice drones or stuff like that, but I guess that was not the case. They're getting an increased range, bigger ore hold, much bigger ore hold. Actually, it's increasing by more than 10%. It looks like here it's probably like 12-15% or so. I'm trying to think of any other changes. Cargo got reduced. I mean, the cargo hold doesn't really matter that much, but yeah, I mean, you could hold a lot of stuff in these ships. Now to the Procure. This is one I'm not in full agreement with. They basically lost 2 mids and gained a low. I'm not entirely in favor of all these ships having the same amount of lows and mids and all that stuff. And it seems like they're giving the Procure pretty much the sledgehammer when it comes to just overall EHP nerf, because those extra mids were typically used for, multispectral shield hardeners or shield extensions. In this case, they're losing those 2 mids and losing shield HP, so they're actually nerfing its shield HP from 6,000 down to 5,000, as well as its structure HP. Now, I will admit, the mass amount of structure HP that the Procure has does make it a bit weird, where you can actually put in like bulkhead rig slots, and it's actually pretty tanky. In my personal opinion, I would have liked them to see at least leave the mids, but maybe heavily nerf the structure and keep the shield. Or if they're going to remove both of these, if they're going to remove both of its mids, just leave the structure and the shield HP as it was. I think removing its mids as well as also its overall shield HP and structure HP is a bit much. It's a pretty heavy-handed nerf. I would like to see them pretty much do one or the other, in my personal opinion. Personally, I would like to see them give it at least 3 mids, ideally 4, and just nerf the base resist amount or just the base amounts of shield and structure HP, but that's just me personally. They did give it a slightly better align time overall. Its mass increased. Again, it can use 5 medium drones now at once. Signature radius bonus has gone up. They can hold a little bit more now in their order hold. And it's given light drones. So, yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it for the barges. Again, it seems like the Coveter, I would assume the Hulk, as well as the Prospect are all the quote-unquote the mining ships. These are the ships you want to use for, they're the generalist mining thing. If you want to basically harvest ice, gas, or you want to use the Coveter, Prospect, and the Hulk. But if you want to kind of play a bit more either defensive or have like a more watchdog playstyle where you can actually PvP a bit, have a little bit more survivability, maybe bring one with a fleet to kind of, you know, do whatever. That's basically the Endurance, the Procure, and the Skiff. And it seems like the Retriever and the Mackinac are going to be, again, still the solo playstyle with the massive ore hold, with a bit more defense and a bit harder to gank. But the roles are the same, but they seem to just exacerbate them a bit more. And I'm not a huge fan of the uniformity, I guess I should say, of like all the slot layouts and stuff. Because that's something I said about the Procure and Skiff. I think, in my personal opinion, if they want to have them do that kind of more defensive playstyle where they can actually help out their allies, give them an extra high slot that's a utility high slot, and give them like a newt or something like that. I think that would have been way more interesting than basically just gouging their mids. As you can see here, Skiff is losing a mid as well. So looking at the Exhumers, the capacitor capacity. I thought that was a bit weird that they kind of set it up that way. The Hulk is getting nerfed even more. I'm not exactly sure why that's the case. I guess they, yeah, not exactly sure why they're nerfing the Hulk's capacity. I already know its capacitor is already suffering, especially when you cycle your lasers a bit too often, or if you like reset them. Sometimes you can almost like nearly nut yourself out if you drop out of warp, things like that. But it's pretty much all the same stuff. The shield HP is getting nerfed on the Hulk. All of the Exhumers are getting an extra base resist buff across the board, an extra 5%, which is nice for some of the ships like the Skiff and the Mackinac. The Hulk isn't going to do much because, again, its shield HP basically got nerfed by 10%. Its armor HP got buffed by 10%. So I'm not exactly sure what CCP is thinking by basically nerfing its main shield resist, but then buffing its defense. They even mentioned too that like, oh yeah, basically we're increasing the resist. But it's kind of window dressing for the fact that they are just removing it from the Hulk. The Hulk, in my opinion, is plenty squishy. Like, even if you left this at 2200, and you increase the resist, I mean, these ships can still die to 2 catalysts, like, regardless. So I'm not sure why they need to keep nerfing its resist, or I should say its, like, base shield HP down like that, but whatever. I don't know if it's to kind of combat the fact that they have an extra mid slot now, and you can actually fit, like, a shield extender in there. I'm not exactly sure. Increase their line time, like usual. Max targets have reduced down. Magnometric scan, who cares about that? I mean, not really getting jammed out too often. Increase their ore hold by quite a bit. That's not bad. Same bonuses. Now the Exhumer level. Okay, so they have the mining barge skill is the exact same across the board. I'm just kind of double checking, make sure I'm not missing anything. Yep, that's the same. And now they get an extra 3%. Wow, so the Hulk is now getting a sig radius bonus. So at max level, they're actually gonna have a 25% smaller sig radius, as well as a 3%. So at max level, it's gonna strip mine 15% faster, as well as ice harvester duration 15% faster than the Coveter counterpart. So that's pretty interesting. I kind of like that. I don't know. It's not gonna help it much because, I mean, smaller sig radius. I mean, you're not really speed taking anything, and you have such a tiny capacitor. You're not going to be like leaving on a micro warp drive anytime soon to like speed tank stuff. You're very slow, so yeah, I'm not exactly sure how I feel about the sig radius bonus now that I think about it. Like, I'm just not sure how it's going to really make use of it, in my personal opinion. Mackinac getting an increased cargo hold capacity. Okay, that's kind of a weird spelling. Instead of just ore hold capacity, it's just ore cargo hold capacity. 3% minor yield. Okay. And so it's interesting how they sometimes switch between these two. Like, sometimes it's strip minor yield, but this one's strip minor duration. I don't think it's that big of a difference. At the end of the day, it seems to be relatively equal. More cargo hold capacity from the Mackinac. Okay, because it's the mining barge skills, the usual. And the Skiff is going to get increased resistances for shield and armor, as well as light drones and medium drone damage. On top of that, interesting. Okay, mining barge, so damage. So again, it seems like they are trading all of the drone, basically HP, all that bonus you're getting, all for damage, which I think is generally fine. The skiff is getting resistances to shield and armor, so it seems like CCP is trying to balance out the fact that skiffs, Mackinaws, and Hulks, or just all of the ships in general, getting their shield and armor HP to be equivalent. So is that, are they trying to give the option for people that shield or armor tank their ships, or I should say maybe structure HP their ships? Because I'm looking at it here now, because the skiff has exactly 5,000 shield, 5,000 armor, 5,000 structure. Looking at the Mackinaw, 3,000 structure, 3,000 armor. I'm assuming it has 3,000 shield as well. Actually, I'm going to pull it up right now on my other screen just to kind of double check. I'm going to simulate this. So I'm kind of playing all this on the fly for you guys. So right now, no, it has 3,700 shield, 3,750 shield. So it has a bit more than the other one. And the Hulk is actually going down as well. So it seems like they're trying to make the shield armor all equal. Like, maybe that's a buff, because now that the damage control actually gives you a higher resist in the armor sector versus shield. I mean, that's always been the case. I believe it's always been like 15%, 25%, and then 40% in the structure. So I don't know. Maybe if you are putting on a damage control on any of these ships, maybe you're getting a higher resist profile. I mean, you are getting a better resist profile, but there's a point of diminishing returns, right? So I'm just curious how this plays out. Like, I'm not the type of person, I'm not going to crunch all these numbers right here and right now, but it's just kind of interesting thought to think of, because it seems like the mining barges as well as the exhumers were always considered shield tank ships, because that's where most of their shield tank is, or that's where most of their shield HP is. But when you're perfectly even when it comes to shield, armor, and structure, I mean, it sounds like you can kind of go a few different ways with it. The Hoarder and the Cryos are getting some unique ore bays. Hoarder is getting a gas bay, which is interesting. The Cryos is now getting an ice hold as well. The mineral hold is getting nerfed by quite a bit, but I don't think that's that big of a deal. The Prime, the ship that still no one uses for planetary interaction, they're getting a slight gas and ice hold increase, but again, I think you're just better off just using something like the Hoarder or the Cryos and just holding 30,000 instead of a ship that does 10,000 of each. Thought that was a bit weird. And the planetary hold is getting an extra plus 1,500, which is 2,500, which is strange because the planetary hold, okay, so that's PI materials. For some reason I was thinking like planetary, like the command structures. I'm like, well, those are 1,000. What's the point of having the 500? So that is a bit different. Okay, so nothing is changing there. So those ships are just getting some unique ore and gas holds. So now on to the industrial command ships, Porpoise and Orca. The Porpoise is getting a very large gas hold as well as an ice hold. Orca as well. We're going to focus on the Porpoise here for the roll bonuses. I'm actually going to pull up the Porpoise here on my other screen just so I can see what the heck is going on here, if anything has really changed for the most part. So it looks like now the Porpoise is removed. They've removed all of the drone mining yield from the Porpoise as well, because it was getting a 50% drone mining yield bonus, but that doesn't seem to be the case here. There's all the tractor beam stuff, command burst module. Yeah, I mean, everything is pretty much the same here, except for the fact they lost their drone bonus. And the per level bonus, cargo hold capacity, ore hold, gas hold. So these are pretty much all in one now. Cargo, ore hold, and gas hold, as well as ice. So they kind of added all that. Before, it would only get ship cargo and ore hold capacity, but now they added 2 more. So I'm just kind of checking back and forth between these. So they did get a buff in drone damage overall. So before it was getting a 10% bonus to drone hit points, damage, and ore yield. Now it's just getting a 15% bonus to drone damage for the most part. So yeah, I'm not exactly sure how I feel about all these mining ships just straight up losing the drone hit point bonus. Again, all of the, like, lore-wise, or I guess you can call them faction or corporation, whatever it is, they are pretty much like a splinter group of the Calente Federation that kind of found a bunch of very expensive minerals out in the middle of space. Galente said, hey, cool, you found all this stuff. Why don't you bring it back? And they said, no, we're going to keep this for ourselves. Hired a bunch of mercenaries to defend them. That's pretty much the gist of it. So all in all, like the roots of ore is from the Galente, but it is a bit weird that they are like shield ships and all that stuff. So I'm not exactly sure all the lore relevance of that and kind of why they are the way they are. But yeah, I mean, it seems like just for the most part, the Porpoise, not much has changed for the Porpoise other than the fact they've gotten gas and ore holds. They remove the drone mining yield, as well as the drone HP bonus, but they just gave them more damage. That's pretty much the only change for the most part. Orca, let me go ahead and pull that one up. I'm assuming it's the same song and dance between the Orca and the Porpoise for the most part. Although the Orca does have that industrial core, which is pretty awesome. So they kept the drone damage here for the Orca, I believe. So the roll bonuses, so they basically replaced the ore mining yield with the 100% drone damage. Okay, that's fine. Optimum range, command bursts, survey scanner range, and a lot of these area effect range and burst and all that stuff, it's actually gonna get buffed with the industrial core, like while you're bastion or whatever you want to call that as well. This can fit a compact industrial core. So a lot of these bonuses are going to get even better, especially when they use that compact industrial core, so including the damage as well. Again, same thing here. All of these bonuses are the exact same, except they remove the HP as well as the mining yield from the drones. Area effect range. Okay, they also increased the range of some of the foreman bursts as well. Shield command duration as well as effect strength. And I think they had to write this out a bit differently than how it is in game for whatever reason. Effect burst and strength. Yeah, I mean, like the base bonuses that they get, the 3% and the 1% and all that stuff is all pretty much identical. So not much has changed for the Orca, especially the fact that it gets industrial core, but that's pretty much it. Oracle, again, it's a ship I'm not familiar with. I don't really know all the numbers like at the back of my hand, but I'm going to go ahead and open that up as well. I'm assuming it's going to be the same, like I said, same song and dance. All the stuff is going to be pretty much the exact same, except now they are pretty much completely gouging any and all of its drone bonuses that it's going to get, especially when it comes to mining yield and yeah. So again, drone damage, area effect range, burst, remote repair, jump 5 times penalty for Entosis Link. I still don't know how that mechanic even works, to be honest. Me personally, 3 command burst modules can fit industrial core. Like all this stuff is the exact same, except now they have a gas hold as well as an ice hold for the most part. So yeah, in that instance, like not much has really changed for like just the overall like roll bonuses and the industrial like command level bonuses. Like those are pretty much all identical. All they did was just give them some unique ore holds, gas holds, ice, that kind of stuff. Remove the drone bonus to hit points as well as yield, and that's it. All right, so looking at some of the drones as well as the modules. So as far as I know, nothing has really changed here. This waste multiplier, to my knowledge, and what people have told me in the last video, is that when you do, let's say I'm using this, where is a strip miner? Yeah, so a strip miner 1. Mining amount 650. Cycle time 3 minutes. A waste multiplier means 100% means I am basically extracting, what is that, 1,300? 1,300 ore, but 675 of it is being wasted. So this is kind of where a lot of people are talking about quote unquote mining PvP. You can actually go into other people's like moon pools or ore belts or whatever it is, purposely take ships over there that have really poor or bad mining crystals and waste probability, start taking their stuff, but more importantly, you're also wasting their minerals as well. So there could be areas in nullsec, lowsec, wherever it is, or hell even in highsec, where people have these moon pools or some of these regions where they kind of have these resources themselves. You can take these purposely very wasteful ships as well as these strip miners or whatever the modules are you're going to be using, and purposely waste a lot of their stuff. So it's you know, not necessarily more for you, but it's just less for them. That's kind of like the goal of it, right? And if you bring enough ships, you could really ruin someone's moon pool at the end of the day. Same thing with these gas harvesters. I'm not exactly sure. part of me almost wanted to start honestly investing in stuff like Gas Cloud Harvester 2s, Strip Miner 2s, because these are things that people are going to be using on a very consistent basis, just because that's what's going to be that has the lowest waste probability. And it's kind of nice now that there's actually a use for some of these incredibly expensive faction harvesters, whether it's for gas or mining or whatever it is, because now there's a zero wasted probability. So you're actually getting the full amount every time you mine it, for the most part. So there's actually no waste when you actually use something like the ore, the Syndicate Gas Cloud Harvester. Same thing over here with the ore deep core mining laser, things like that. So maybe if you're in the kind of the far corners of nullsec and you feel very safe and not a lot of people go out there, you probably could get away with some of these faction mining lasers, so you're not wasting a lot of these ore or resources that are in your backyard. Ice mining, it's kind of the same thing as far as I know. These waste volume multipliers, this kind of could breed another wave of, I guess, mining PvP or whatever it is. You are wasting other people's resources. I mean, you're still getting resources yourself, and you're not really losing out on anything by using like a worse one. I mean, you're still getting the full amount, but you're just kind of, a lot of that extra resources are just getting thrown into the void, into the ether. Nothing is really happening with it. So as far as I know, I think the mining amount across the board has stayed the same. Nothing has really changed. I think if they really changed the mining amounts, at that point CCP would be turning too many knobs and valves into the industry, and I think that would kind of throw everything off. So I'm kind of glad they kept all of that the same. The ore compression ratio, all this stuff, I'm not going to dig into this at all whatsoever. I'm not really digged into this or anything like that, but long story short, it seems like you want the best compression, you're going to have to go do these rigs and all that stuff to have the best compression possible, except for moon ore, which can only be compressed inside of a rorqual, which I think is a bit weird, but typically if you are doing moon mining, it's usually pretty darn close to where you're using it to reprocess or make this stuff anyway, so I don't think it's that big of a deal. Ship industry and update follow-up. Okay, so they are making changes to a lot of the capital parts, mostly. So I will say, if you guys do have any of these things, like the capital armor plates or any of this stuff right now, they're just going to go down in price because whatever materials are needed to make this stuff are going to go down by roughly half, or it's going to be much easier to actually make them. So if you guys are making them right now, like finish off the job, whatever you're doing now, but just hold off on to when the industry update hits potentially. And then you're going to be able to make them much cheaper. But also in the meantime, they might be cheaper since then. So I'll leave that up to you guys, whether you want to do it. I think it's still going to be profitable either way. But once this update hits, the prices of these will be going down very quickly. Mining crystals, it seems like they have simplified this whole mining crystal thing. So there's a type A, type B, type C. This helps with the cycle time bonus, probability, waste additive, all this other stuff. So again, I think there are going to be people that will be purposely using, ships with high waste probability, using lasers with high waste probability. I don't think the ships have any waste probability tied to it. So it's pretty much all going to be up to the lasers as well as the crystals that are going to be used on it. And people might purposely just use bad stuff. Maybe not the bad lasers, because volatility, crystal volatility damage, so it's going to increase the damage. I'll be honest, I don't really use mining laser crystals that often. Typically I've always just used T1 strip miners just because I'm lazy. I don't want to have to swap crystals all the time when I'm multi-boxing and all that. But whatever the setup is to basically make mining as wasteful as possible, I could definitely see people be doing that in other people's regions of space. So new skills. So they've kind of compounded all of the reprocessing skills into a handful of them. So now there's common, uncommon, rare, supreme, abyssal, as well as mercoxic. So instead of having, I believe it was like over 30 different skills for reprocessing, now they're narrowing it down to just 6. And for all of you guys that do have a bunch, I do have court mates that have an absurd amount of these skills either maxed out or gotten up to level 4. You're going to be getting a massive refund on all those skills. And so for some of you guys that do have it maxed out, afterward, when you skill inject everything back into these, not so much skill inject, but I guess skill inject, you actually might have 2 million SP left over afterward, hanging around to actually do other stuff. So that's actually pretty cool. And this is the way that CCP should do it when they do a rebalance like this, is kind of refund everyone for what it is. Luckily, the new one just costs less SP, so now I have some SP left over to play with. So, yeah, that's pretty much it. I will probably go up on the test server over the next few days or so. I'm going to be pretty busy over the next month. I'm actually dealing with some stuff at the end of the month. I'm actually moving out into a new place, so I'm not sure how much that's going to affect like my video uploading schedule for the most part. But yeah, I'll probably do a video on just me on the test server trying out a few different ships, maybe trying out the new compact industrial core as well, and then maybe I'll do another video kind of summing everything up and some of the changes, very laid out in an organized manner, some of the changes I think CCP should do for the most part. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Hope you guys take care and you fly safe.